मेरे आज के इन्विंसिबल है एक प्रोलिफिक और एक्सप्लोसिव फिल्म मेकर जिन्होंने अपनी जिंदगी रेकलेस ईज के साथ जी है, अनशेकेबल एंड अनस्टॉपेबल। प्लीज वेलकम द पावर हाउस फायर स्टार्टर मिस्टर महेश भट्ट। But Saab, welcome on this show.
Thank you, Arbaaz.
You started your career from zero, and zero is a brilliant number to start with. But this was something that was told to you when you entered the industry.
It was the same studio, Mehboob, where we are shooting this episode. My mother had said, "Ki beta, paise leke aana, nahi to ghar wapas nahi aana." So I ventured, I remember, on a hot summer afternoon into Mehboob studio. I was stopped at the gate. And the watchman said, "कहाँ भैया कहाँ को जा रहे हो? हाँ जा कर रहे हो? ऐसे जा नहीं रहा, मुझे बुलाया है." That was a damn lie, right? But the flourish with which I said it
was convincing.
Made him step aside and say, "Yeah." I was stood outside Raj Saab's office for some time, and then he summoned me in. I still remember the feeling. I walked into an air-conditioned room, and in those days, air-conditioned rooms were less. I'm talking about 1970. And he asked me to sit down, and he was sitting down. There was this huge picture of the great Guru Dutt behind him. And he said, "Okay, so do you know anything about movies?" "No, sir." And he said, "Zero is a brilliant figure to begin from." And Arbaaz, the ability to empty yourself repeatedly in life has been one of the assets that I think I picked up way back in time, that success fills us up with this delusion that you know it all, and then you have to empty the cup and start all over again, and the voice of the master comes back and says, "Zero is a great figure to begin from."
Your first income was about 53 rupees.
Yes, you've done your research. Yes.
And that money, what did you do with?
I remember bringing it to my mother, and I walked with her with pride. And I said, she said, "What?" I said, "Money." She looked at it, and she said, she kept it in her blouse. And she said, "इसको मैं अपने कलेजे के पास रखूंगी सीने से लगा के, शायद आज जैसी नींद आएगी कभी आई नहीं होगी जिंदगी में." So I remember that comfort I gave her of having earned my first
How
money.
old were you that time?
15, 16.
So you were conscious of the fact that at that point in time, given the situation that your family was going through, it was mandatory for you to, as
Yes.
a male member,
Yeah.
do something, take care of it.
Yes. When you are stigmatized as an illegitimate child of an...
Talk about that. I mean,
See,
you had
my parents, it was post-independent India, 1948 I was born. My mother was a Shia Muslim, right? And but we lived in Shivaji Park, which is the majority is faith of people there are Hindus there, and she concealed her identity, and she wore a sari, adorned a tika. So my father was a filmmaker, very reputed filmmaker. He fell in love with my mother, but because of the religious biases that existed, we were the illegitimate house. So the leftovers came to us. His story was that there was no way that his mother would allow the other, a Muslim woman, right? But they had fallen in love, so...
I believe when he used to enter your house, he used to wear his shoes.
Yeah, he would never remove his shoes. And when he entered our home, I felt as if an outsider had come. They say childhood is the most glorious phase of your life. I don't have... Because the movies that he made were stories of fantasies, of Sinbad the Sailor, and of magic carpets. But my life was one of... it was something that to be embarrassed about, something to be hidden. I had encounters with vicious elderly men who would push me into a corner and ask me where my father is. And my sisters would lie that he's gone for shooting and he's gone here, he's gone there. And one day I said, my father doesn't live with us. He lives with his wife somewhere else, in Andheri. The sisters came and told mommy about it, and I got a beating of my life. But then I understood that after that they did not, these guys who were vicious to me, stopped harassing me. And I discovered that people manipulate you from what you hide.
Did you hope in your childhood that he would bridge the gap and probably make, or you were okay with the scenario that it was there?
I was my mother's son. Finished.
That's probably the reason why you once made a very bold statement that I'm a bastard.
But I was by the terms of the world. I never said it. You see, there was a journalist called Prochi Badshah. So she kind of interviewed me, and then she finally walked up to me and said that, so in other words, Mahesh, you are. So I said, you what? And she left the word unsaid. I said, a bastard, yes. If you want to use that word, you can use it. And I saw her face light up. She says, I've got my headline.
When you hang your shame, it's there for the public.
Yeah, it's there.
There's nothing for...
In fact, you're nothing but what you hide.
Yeah.
You are what you hide.
Your mother said आप में फकीरों वाला अंदाज था. बचपन से वो आपको कहती थी.
So I remember my mother would always come, and I remember her looking at me, and she would look at me. फिर आँख खुली है तेरी, फिर आसमान को देखता है. And I remember her saying this, मत करा कर बेटा, इतना मत सोचा कर, अकेला हो जाएगा. और अंधेरों में झाकेगा ना, तो अंधेरा अंदर उतर जाएगा तेरे.
See the positivity of a woman who herself probably was going through so much of...
But I could feel that she was putting up an act. She was suffering. She was suffering.
Did you have any angst against your father?
Yes, a lot.
For how long?
Lots of time. For a very long time. I can't tear my veins and bleed him out of my system. I'm born of him.
Was there any initiation from your side to reconcile, or was an attempt made even from his side?
Unfortunately, he made it very difficult for me.
He did?
Yeah. Because you see, when my mother died in 1998, the only wish she expressed, Arbaaz, was that if I die, I want to be buried according to my faith. So I said, fine. So I remember that when she died, and my father came with his wife. I mean, she was an amazing woman. That's the time when he put sindoor in a mang. And I said, oh my God, too little, too late. That broke me down when I saw that sight, because she always wanted a picture of him publicly.
Wow.
Accepting it. But then I told her, I said, look, she told me that she would like to be buried where her mother is buried, in the Shia Qabristan. So I looked at his face, and his face went white. And he said, मुझे माफ कर दे बेटा, मेरा मजहब मुझे वहाँ जाने की परमिशन नहीं देता. That broke my heart. That broke my heart. But I was not angry at that moment, strangely. I said, look, मैं तो बेटा हूँ, मुझे तो जाना पड़ेगा. जैसे उन्होंने कहा है, वो तो भैया.
That was the last wish.
I said, वो तो ऊपर वाला भी deny नहीं कर सकता है, वो right मुझे.
I think this moment again would have pushed you back to believing that.
Yeah, but that was something which it's kind of scarred me. My eyes still well up with tears, and I looked at him and I said, perhaps he is a prisoner of his own upbringing, and that's his. We are all prisoners of our own past.
Later on in life, you did seek for some kind of person to teach you or be a guru, so there came in...
Well, I was a very normal guy, Arbaaz. You know, I had made a movie called Manzilein Aur Bhi Hain and Vishwas Ghat, and they were flops. So I went into this spiritual supermarket. So I went to Rajni. She was the charismatic guru from Pune. And I went and I devoted myself to him. I wore ochre robes and all that. I did meditation 5 hours a day.
Was it around the same time that Vinod Khanna sir was
yes,
also
yeah.
there?
So I was in a way perhaps instrumental in taking Vinod there.
Oh, so you took him there?
Yeah.
Okay. And then he continued?
Yeah, and then
at one stage
I broke the mala and I threw it down. I said,
look,
I still feel envious, I still feel jealous. I'm just saying holy words and I'm being a hypocrite. I can't lie to the whole world, I can't lie to myself.
So once you broke the mala, I believe
He said
probably he was upset.
very upset. He
was
said,
upset.
I remember Vinod calling me to Filmistan. He said, come here, come here, come here. I've got something very important to talk to you. I said, what? And he said, Bhagwan is very angry with you. I said, why? He said, you broke the mala and put it in the commode. I just broke it and I just put it there. I said, it's worthless. I'm a damn fool. This is a dog collar. He says, no. He says, ask Mahesh to bring back the mala and give it to me in person. Otherwise, he said, and he dropped his voice. Otherwise, he said, he will destroy you.
But did that affect your equation with Vinod sir also?
No, it did not. Of course, I was a renegade. I had broken away from that flock. Rajneesh told Vinod that, look, I worked so hard on Mahesh. He perhaps did not have in him what you have. So I said, oh my God, he's using you against me. He's telling you you're something special. I'm too unimportant. I was a nobody at that time.
Did he try to lure you back in any way?
I remember going with your father once to meet him.
That's right,
when his show in Oregon had flopped, before he became Osho, from Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh. And I remember asking him, I said, look, do you have anything apart from words to give me? Because I'm in business because people are lonely, and you're in business because people are miserable. But is there something, if you have light, can you give that light to me? If you can't give it to me, what's going on between you and me here? It was a 15 minutes appointment, Arbaaz, and it went on for 1.5 hours. He was trying to woo me back, and I was just not falling for those words. I was not the same, he was not the same. But then when I got up, I discovered that he was not responsible for anything. I wanted to hear things that he told me. He was an entertainer, a wordsmith, and a very successful man, a very charismatic man. He provided great comfort to people for a certain time, but it became a kind of a spiritual drug. It's a kind of a drug. So I keep on saying that gurus have a social role to play, so do prostitutes. They fulfill some social need in people, some like we entertainers fulfill.
It didn't stop you from again getting into UG.
UG was a man who's completely, the world chose to call him a God man, but he said, I would rather be called a fraud than a God man.
How did you get introduced to him?
In those days, I was doing spiritual shopping. I was hopping from one shop to the other.
What was troubling you at that time?
Well, I was a failure. I had started my career, my movies had bombed. So I went to meet UG when he came, because I was unemployed. I was not having anything. I went to meet him. And he said that what you're looking for does not exist. That's the only reality. This is the world where you stand on people's toes, climb on people's shoulders. Some moments of happiness, some moments of unhappiness. This is the only reality. And the search for that makes you a misfit. So all the energy that I was consuming in the pursuit of the non-existent enlightenment was consumed by delivering in the real world. And I started working with the ferocity of a beast. And then earth happened to me, which came from my personal wounds. And somehow, suddenly I was resurrected. And this was my new lease of life. But it was built from my personal trauma of a failed marriage. That became the kind of fuel to create Earth, which became a path-breaking film.
Since it was not just about your life, it had to deal with the other people's lives. How was their reaction to the fact that their lives were also going to be exposed in a certain way?
Well, people say that the gossip magazine at that time said, look, Praveen's second breakdown was because of Earth. I don't agree with that at all, because, well, I was talking about my life, but it was an autobiographical film which was fictionalized.
So whatever your equation with Praveen Babi did get affected more?
Well, I did not meet her after we parted ways in the 80s. UG, who helped me out a lot, said that, look, you will never be out of this business, and she's unfit for this business. So if you really love her, leave her.
There was also a time where probably one way of treating her was to give her electric shocks, and at that
was the time I ran away with her.
Yeah, because
there was a set of Shan put up, and she was a big part of that movie. And
it was around that time.
Yes. And I remember walking up to Ramesh Sippyji's office, and I was just a toy boy. I was a nobody. So he just looked at me and said, what's happening? So and at that time, the mental illness was an enigma. Even now, it continues to be. So the doctor had said it would take 6 to 8 weeks for her to come back through functional normalcy. But they didn't have time. 6 to 8 weeks, they had foreign stuntmen and all. I could understand the impatience of the film industry because a lot of money was riding on her. Then I hijacked her. I took her away to Bangalore, and there was Yuji there. And Yuji, my friend, helped me. And he told me that, look, you have to go away from my life.
Post Praveen Bhabi and the traumatic experience for some extent. Of course, it may have been beautiful while it lasted, and it may have had ups and downs. You got yourself again into a pretty much similar scenario.
Well, I was not sure that we had a beautiful...
You're like a repeated offender.
Yeah, I would not say I was in the beautiful relationship with Pradeep. Because, you know, when Silsila released and I said that, look, extramarital affairs don't take place in tulip gardens. They take place in seedy, dark landings and you know, people hide, feeling of sin. So that was a very traumatic phase with Praveen. But yes, I came back home. And then I had a son. And I thought I would take him for morning walks and all that. And then Sony happened to me. And I resisted. But I was drawn into this relationship. And I remember telling Sony that line which is there in Raz, I said, don't come close to me, I'll destroy you.
Was there any incident that when you went to meet her somewhere, you wore shoes and went because you used to wear sandals all the time?
Yeah. You know, whenever you fall in love, you always feel you're unworthy of the person whom you're in love with. So I said, how do I become worthy of her? So I wore shoes. And I felt so uncomfortable, and she looked at me, and that made me even more comfortable. And I remember we were sitting down in a hotel in Burley, and I told her, I said, don't come very close to me, I'll destroy you. That's a dialogue we use in Raz. कि मेरे करीब मत आवा तो मैं बर्बाद कर दूंगा. She says, मैं बर्बाद होना चाहती हूँ.
I recollect seeing you, Sony ji, a couple of times because that time there was a working relationship with Dad as well. You had a drinking problem at that time.
Oh my God!
If I could recollect. Salman and me at one stage, if I can talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
You were so drunk, and Dad said, "Bhai, he has to go home. You guys have to drop him home." So we tried to take you in a cab, Salman and me, and you forgot where you lived. And
I still don't know where I live.
And we were actually embarrassed also, but we were kind of giggling also. You made a 360 transition post that. When was that turning point where you felt enough was enough and this is it?
One day, Arbaaz, I woke up and I found myself sleeping on the footpath of Juhu Vilepala scheme.
Okay.
I remember my face was on the concrete, and dawn was just breaking. It was a leprous dawn. And I realized I had gone for some party, and I had fallen down on the road and slept there. I had somebody had taken away my purse, also because if you see a drunk lying on the road, you take his purse away. I remember walking up to my house. I was living with in Lokhandwala with Sony. She said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I don't know. I became an alcoholic." And she was alarmed at the very idea of me having spent the night on the road. And then a miracle happened. My first baby was born from Sony, Shaheen. When I came to the hospital and they gave me the baby to hold, so I was holding Shaheen in my arm and I went to kiss her, and I got this feeling that as if she moved away. She couldn't bear the stench, the fumes of alcohol. Now, she couldn't have done that. She was a little baby. But this is what I hallucinated, I projected. That did it. I said, I can't deal with this rejection from this. Life is saying something to me. Since that day to now, I've not touched a drop of alcohol.
How remarkable is that?
36 years.
It's incredible.
Not one drop.
When I see you now, I think there's so much of serenity and calmness, which is pretty much in your demeanor and your face right now. There's a light almost. Do you feel the same? Do you feel that you have made that little transition from being a very extremely, maybe volatile person?
I feel a lot of love for people. The need to give. The need to give is what drives me. I don't want to do anything that adds anything to my reputation or to my bank balance now. I want to give. लोग बूढ़े हो जाते हैं, बड़े नहीं होते. To be an elder is to stop fighting youngsters for the goodies that they rightfully deserve. There was once a time when you fought for those goodies, right? And you got them. How much more do you want? What will you take? What will you add now to your arsenal that you haven't already done it?
The film that really propelled you into the superstardom was a movie called Naam, which
Yeah.
you introduced my father into. What was that experience? And
Well, I remember your father stopping me just around the curve near Mehboob. I was passing, he stopped me and he said, I saw your film Arth and I loved it. He was somebody that I had known as a child because he was a person I saw as a child when he came into my house when he was doing a film with my father called Sher-Shah Suri. He was an actor at that time. I was always charmed by his demeanor. He was a beautiful man. There's something that stayed with me about him. There was a largeness. Why do you enter a room where there are a lot of people there and why are you drawn to one face? So I thought of Salim Saab and I told Rajendra ji, I said, sir, let's try him because I think he has got the kind of largeness. And by God, that was the decision. I just had an idea and then he just said, let me embrace it. Because he was thirsty. He was hungry. He wanted to reassert to the world that I am the king of the jungle.
he says there are two Mahesh in my life. One was Mahesh Kaul very early when I came in, and there's another Mahesh, that's Mahesh Bhatt. They were pretty much instrumental in where I am today in my life.
Oh my God, a statement like this could only come from him. That I gave him, I did not give him anything. I mean, the fact is that he became the springboard for me to become what is called a box office phenomena.
But Saab, you made Saransh, you introduced Anupam Kherji.
Yeah.
Okay. Even Imran Hashmi, you introduced him.
Yeah.
Both of these people, whenever you meet them, you say, where is my cut? And you take money out of their pockets every time you meet them.
Anupam Kher, Imran is a bloody stingy guy.
Okay.
He only gave me once in the beginning and then his hand barely goes into his pocket halfway. Anupam still does give me money. The last time he gave me money was after his phenomenal success of Kashmir Files. He was at the Dr. Pradhan's dental clinic and I said, I'm going to bloody meet you there. And I really went in when he had all his jaw opened and I said, give it to me and he gave me the money. And he has been giving me money ever since Saransh became a success. And those memories are the memories that we must always draw from and not let the ideological differences that create a wedge between us get the better of us.
Acha, what's your philosophy of life? What's your guru mantra?
But I can't reduce life into a mantra. I only know one thing. I'm left with a deep feeling of not knowing. So the magic and the mystery of life continues. But I'm filled with enormous love and deep gratitude for people who have held my hand and seen me through the difficult phases of my life. It just seemed like yesterday I walked into this place called Mehboob Studio and I began my career. In a blink of an eye, 53 years have gone. But it's been a rich life. I'm filled with immense gratitude. And but do I know anything? Can I tell Arbaaz or the world that here is a magic mantra that you should use? I don't think so.
Was there anything that UG said that you wanted to convey to the world, but you felt that you could not?
Once he on his own told me, if you think you have become whatever you have become because of me, which I don't think so, then do for others what you think I have done for you. I remember once when I was going through a bad phase and somebody was there, a director of great repute, Mr. Vijayanand, and he was asking somebody around me, कोई अच्छे डायरेक्टर का नाम बताओ यार जो पिक्चर कर सके. So that person, out of generosity, looked at me and said, "Ki inko le lijiye na." So he said, "No, no, no, not. We want somebody." The way he dismissed me kind of made me shrink. And Yuji saw that. And I remember Yuji saying, "Goldie, he's a talented man going through a bad phase." Just that statement of somebody of his stature saying this to me, that I'm a talented man going through a bad phase, gave me enough fuel to take not only that blow that came my way, but also deal with the reversals of life. Understand that there will be low phases. Go through that with dignity. And you never come to a point where you can say, "I know it all." The fact is, you don't know a damn thing. Most of the time, things don't work. Sometimes it works.
But Sahib, you've read a lot. 5 books that you think are a must read.
I would say reduce your life to one book, that is you. Step into your own life. Revisit your own narrative. Those books have nothing if you do not ultimately use them to look at your own life. A good book makes you see something within your own self. That's why it's a good book. What are you left with is what I can reduce in one sentence, what a Jewish rabbi once said to me. He said, "When I was young and stupid, I used to be very dazzled by eloquence and by speech, great speech. But what touches me now is human kindness." Ultimately, it all boils down to human kindness.
I think we can sum it up with this beautiful line and ending. But Saab, thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've spoken so well. We've learned so much from your
Thank
conversation.
You so much. Thank you so much.
Totally admire you.
Thank you.
And totally grateful
Thank
to you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.